Are migrants agents of political and social change? A collection of migrant letters written by German migrants in the 19th to 20th century. We can trace clusters of ideas and their shifts over time. I'm interested in processes of political, economic and social change, and in particular how these processes interact. My current research focuses on migration. I find transnational linkages created by migrants particularly interesting. These can be linkages between people across borders, between places, and also between the politics in different places. And I'm currently engaged in a 3-year research project funded by the Leverhulme Trust, and it asks the question, what, if anything, do migrants send back home in addition to or instead of money? And the bigger question behind that is, are migrants agents of political and social change? Economists have told us quite a bit about economic remittances, the money sent by migrants. And we know about the positive and negative developmental impacts that this money can have. But we know a lot less about political and social remittances. Social remittances comprise ideas, identities, ways of doing things and norms transferred by migrants. And political remittances refer to practices, political and civic engagements with the homeland. For example, extraterritorial voting, standing in homeland elections, supporting particular political causes or certain organizations. Understanding social and political remittances is important for policymakers in national governments as well as in international organizations. We need to understand these less tangible but significant transfers in order to understand a number of other phenomena better, in particular migrant integration into host societies and their links with the homeland, but also issues like the external promotion of democracy and development, and also external intervention in ethnic conflicts, for example. While it is easy to see that, in principle, social and political remittances should matter, it is far from easy to study these remittances, because there isn't easily available data that could track these remittances, in particular also over time. For that first historical pillar of my project, I'm using a large collection of migrant letters written by German migrants in the 19th to 20th century, based in the US, and they sent letters back home reporting about their impressions of life in the US. But also political ideas come through, an engagement with newly experienced diversity in society and ethnic diversity in particular, and also ideas of political freedom or democracy, and that is set in contrast to the experience they had in their homeland. Over time, the balance between positive and negative assessments of the two societies changes, and with several thousand letters that we're analysing with social science methods, we can trace these clusters of ideas and their shifts over time in a novel way. The second pillar of my project focuses on contemporary migration out of Eastern Europe, and together with a small team I'm assembling data on the backgrounds of politicians who occupied prominent positions in Central and Eastern Europe post-1989. We're looking at the diaspora migration background of these politicians and are trying to see if the number of these people and their backgrounds are reflected in decisions governments took in the early transition period on political and economic change in particular. The third part of the project relies on surveys I've conducted with voters, Polish migrant voters and Ukrainian migrant voters. So that means voters voting in Polish or Ukrainian elections from abroad, as well as focus groups and in-depth interviews with Polish migrants in the UK and their family members back home. So the third part of the project also cautions us against the general claim that migrants are always agents of positive social and political change. Because what I can see in the voting patterns of migrants, they do resemble voting patterns of domestic electorates. So that means only some identities or political identities might be amenable to change while in migration, while others might stay stable. My interviews with migrants in the UK and their family members back in Poland shows how certain personal and political identities change through the experience of migration while others remain stable. And it is exactly those micro-foundations of personal and political identities that we need to understand better to bring an understanding of political and social remittances to public policy needs.